$1 million idea is just an idea until you put it into action. Over the next half hour, meet some Australian entrepreneurs doing just that.
If you don't have a passion and enjoy what you're doing, you may as well go and get a job and earn a wage.
I thought, how cool would this be for me to have, be able to dispense beer at my own house, as every bloke would love to do.
And learn valuable insights from those already at the top.
The most important thing you have in your life is your family.
The customer's the boss of the business.
Consistency of supply and consistency of product.
It strives on the good old-fashioned testimonial.
Business sense. Real sense through the eyes of small business.
On my 21st birthday, I actually came to Darwin to visit a couple of girlfriends, and I just fell in love with the place. When I drove past here, there was this tiny, tiny little sign that said, "For sale, apply within." So when I got home and told my husband that, he said, "Oh, I'd be really interested in that." So it must have been meant to be. We bought this property and it had a rundown nursery on it, and we started cleaning up the place. People were driving along the fence. "Excuse me, what time are you opening?" And they're poking their head over the fence. "What time are you opening, please?" Well, there wasn't a piece of stock, there wasn't one plant, there wasn't anything. This went on for about 6 weeks. So I said to my husband, "Well, this is ridiculous. How about we start a nursery?" So he said, "Well, give it a go, I guess." So the 2 older children and myself, every afternoon and every night, we'd pot plants. We got thousands and thousands of palms potted. 10 months later, the accountant said, "You better open that nursery. You're spending too much money." I don't think life's about being the most successful or being the most wealthy. I think life's about what's important in here and your happiness, your family. I mean, I've done it really to help the family and raise my children. That's been my biggest passion. And I set out to win the best garden centre in Australia, but I had no idea I was going to do it 3 years in a row and then go into the Hall of Fame. That's just blown me away. I think it's important to create ideas for shoppers, no matter where you want to go, what you're looking for to buy. But if you see it in, regimentedly in blocks, it doesn't give you any ideas to help you create your courtyard at home or your garden at home. Got some lovely signage, which was created by my husband Peter actually. He said, "Well, if you're going to have signage, let's do some street signs." And I thought, what a great idea. Behind me here you see the Pot Station gift shop. This is our new train station gift shop, and our pot section area. Actually developing a Devonshire tea area so that when you come over on the weekend you'll be able to sit down and have a nice cup of tea, cup of coffee with some scones and jam and cream. This is my latest toy, my very first brand new vehicle. So that way I can zip backwards and forwards to the office, to the nursery, to the office, to the nursery, out the back to collect plants. You have to keep watching the bottom line all the time, because if you don't and you overspend, of course you can easily get yourself into a position where, oh gosh, what are we going to do? You get a few more wrinkles and you worry. But as you get older, you mature a bit more and think, well, you've just got to move on, keep working hard. And the quickest lessons in life are the ones that cost you a lot of money, the mistakes you make. One door shuts, another one opens. It's been a great philosophy of my husband's, and I'll go, oh hell, we've just lost that great big job. Well, one door shuts, another one opens. Always looking for that open door, but at the same time, in the retail industry or any business you're in, look after your regular customers. Don't forget them to chase a new customer. The new ones will find you, but whatever you do, don't forget your regular customers. I've thought of expanding in Darwin itself But of course, good people are hard to find. I'm always open for anybody who wants to get a skill, apprenticeship, traineeship. I've had a couple of girls looking at doing that shortly. So I've got a passion for helping the young people as well. No business is successful by one person. A business is successful by the group of people and their passion and their focus for what they want to do and where they want to go. I do believe it's important for the person at the top, though, to have a target, have that challenge there for them. They'll just grab it with both hands. If you have the challenge, you get the broom out, you do the hard yards, keep getting your broom out and doing the sweeping. Your people, I'm sure they'll respect you and work with you.
Oh, she's always like puts you on, gives you plenty of energy. She's a bit like a big mama for us. She's the soul of this business. Everyone remembers her, especially on the radio or every time she talks. She's so unique that yeah, you can't miss her or forget about her.
I've done a lot of work burning the candle at night. It is a challenge. Prime example, 2 mornings ago, where's the checkbook? And everything has its place. Well, where is the damn thing? Well, I saw it at 1 o'clock this morning because that's what time I was in the office working. I've tried the notepad on the side of the bed scenario and I'll drop that down, but then that snowballs too, and that makes you want to really get out of bed and do work. So sometimes if you're up at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, it's just as easy to get up, get on with it, and you feel better for it. We probably went a good 5 or 6 years and you don't even think about having a holiday. You make the most of every day and you have quality time, especially with your children, and whether it's on a football field or on a dancing floor or an Eisteddfod, you drop everything, turn the phone off, you take that hour out, and I guess that's what's so precious, that quality time. I guess it's something you enjoy. If you don't have a passion and enjoy what you're doing, you may as well go and get a job and earn a wage, because there's a lot of commitment, a lot of tough times, but every morning you wake up, the sun's shining, hey, what a beautiful day. I love every facet of what I do. I love the staff that work for me. I treat them all as my family. Whether I go out and escort a wide load, or whether I'm here selling plants or having a look at somebody's garden because they've got a problem, I guess it's what you love in life, and you have to love it to do it.
Still to come.
If you don't fulfill a promise to your customer, that makes your business look unprofessional.
You'll only have 1/18th. You'll only have 1/21st. You'll only have one box party if your marriage happens to work.
Well, we met first year
Uni. Yeah, the Bachelor of Business Entrepreneurship at RMIT. So we were sort of going into the course. The idea is that you actually come up with business ideas with the thought of actually taking them further.
Cam had built his own little chiller, smaller version of one of these.
I thought, how cool would this be for me to have, be able to dispense beer at my own house, sort of thing, as every, I think, bloke would love to do. So I actually went into it and I bought the little bits and pieces, these second-hand parts, and put together one of these little miracle boxes, as they're commonly called. And then when I came over here to go to uni, I was living at college and I met Vaj and I told him about this miracle box I had, and he said, "Oh, Wiki, can I borrow it for a party?" He took it, borrowed it, said it was great, and then it sort of just all went from there.
Here you've got your keg, which is the big bertha here. The way it works is it's pushed out with gas through this line here. Inside here is a heat exchange, which ice sits on top of it. As the beer passes through, the ice melts, flash chills the beer. The ice turns to water and runs out. And your cold, fresh beer, just pot after pot, comes straight out the tap. Easy as 1, 2, 3.
It was more that we saw the opportunity and we thought, well, this is fun at the same time. So it was just a bonus that the fact that we were getting into something to do with beer, which at the time we were consuming a lot of.
Starting a business at pretty much the same time that we started the course, we were able to action the stuff that we learned in class. So yeah, it's not going to teach you the ins and outs. Most of that you've got to learn by mistake.
You found out by trial and error, which I reckon is the best way of learning, and it's been like having a 6-year degree, because you did 3 years of uni and then 3 years of business, and even though you've done them at the same time, you've learnt twice as much. One of the other benefits is that I finished halfway through this year, but I've been doing a Masters of Accounting. So after I finished the Bachelor of Business course, I went back and did that.
Good partnership.
Yeah. So when I first started, I probably didn't have the greatest idea on how to do them, but I sort of learnt the bookkeeping side of things, and then went back to uni and learnt more about accounting and that sort of thing. But we do have accountants as well.
Your business is only as good as your administration. Like if you've got all that as strong and as Cam has kept it, that is a core of your business. And if that starts getting mismatched and wayward, then you really start to see problems. And if it's not right, you're not going to see the problems that are there. My father's always been in business. Like, we grew up on a family winery, and seeing the steps of starting out and growing and all the baby steps to get to the end goal. And I think that's always been exciting.
I've always had that sort of feeling that I wanted to create something in the world. I had a lot of interest in the economics and the way that business relationships work. The idea of actually building something and being able to direct it the way you want it to be.
We were able to start it with very little capital. When we realised it was a potential goer, and after like a fair bit of planning, we were able to put in a small amount of our money and start a partnership. And then once it started to get its legs and move on, then we were able to go to that second step, incorporate and turn it into a formal entity. Most of my mentors who I've been able to utilise, it's more of just a friendly chat. If I've got something that's really going wrong in my life, 90% of the time, one of them's had it happen to them before. So being able to utilise that knowledge and bounce that back into your life is a huge asset.
You find a lot of informal mentors around. So I suppose never really had sort of seen one person as, the god, the mentor sort of thing. But, I've had plenty of input from my parents, both my mother and my father, and as Vouch has as well. Just generally people that you meet, you form relationships with them, and they've been around in the game of business for a lot longer. And so they, they'll see something and they offer that bit of advice, and I've always made sure that taking it on one way or another, it doesn't, not necessarily, you might not agree with that bit of advice, but at least you've got another perspective.
Mom and Daddy need have no fears, 'cause Kegs and Legs is here.
People, no matter who they are honoured for you to ask them that question. So it's not a formal thing. Can you please be my mentor? Can I please ask you a massive question? As long as you're upfront with what you're asking, it's quite an honour to them to give something back to you.
Don't worry about your P&L, don't worry about your balance sheet. The cash flow should be the one that you're watching all the time. You need to be able to pay your suppliers, and that's one thing that I suppose we've always been very conscious of. Whatever happens, I would hate to think that we would, be defaulting on anything. So it's always been a priority to make sure suppliers and people that you've, obviously got stock or had things given to you, that you make sure that they're paid, and then that bodes well for later down the track. You have a lot better relationships with your suppliers, and they help you almost grow your business by being a little bit forgiving in some areas, or helping you out with others. Instead of being, reporting to a boss, you're reporting to your customers. You've got to keep your customers happy, and I know more than anything, it feels a lot more stressful knowing that if a customer rings up and says, "Oh, I haven't got this," or "I'm waiting on this," or "What are you doing about this?" It's just, how am I going to make this customer happy?
If you don't get that to your customer, or you don't fulfil a promise to your customer, that makes you, your business, your whole entity that you've worked so hard in building up to what it is, just look so small and so unprofessional.
We promote responsible drinking. Come on, guys.
After the last quarter last year, I was getting extremely busy in here, and didn't quite have enough manpower to do everything. Now I've got someone in here full time to look after the sales and operations side, so Cam and I can both look objectively again on the business and start working on the strategic side of it instead of just making ends meet. It's showing quite quickly how much we can advance the business, not having to be stuck on the phones.
You never really get ahead, do you? When you're doing all that, so you think you're getting ahead, but you never are. So
it just turns into long hours and stressful nights. our franchise consultant's motto is do it once, do it right, and I think that's a big thing for us. Like, it's not something that we're willing to put like all our hard work into something that may not be 100% yet. So
yeah, we want to see how successful, I suppose, as it is now, and then if it permits to go down that track, then that's something we'll look at, and it's a growth option that we are definitely looking at. We have got a lot of support from the breweries at different stages throughout the business, but it takes a bit of hassling sometimes to get such a large organisation to help maybe a smaller business.
And at least we're on the radar now, and that's just a time and PR thing really. Like, it's like we know our reps, but then above the reps and management, that's like on us to get to that level. You'll see like every bit of our product is just slapped with our logo everywhere, and that has created a lot of word of mouth. Like, it's quite an easy brand to remember, and we find that a lot we ask every customer how they've heard of us, and word of mouth is by far like the top contributing factor. For our paid advertising, I suppose our website is a huge driving force, and that's quite easy to fund. And radio advertising, from obviously it's our biggest spend, but our most effective.
You know you'll never run out of beer, and they'll be talking about your party for years.
Yeah, the logo we both toyed around with for a bit, and then...
You should see the initial drawings, they're pretty dodgy. It was initially something similar to that, but I think you or I may have hand-drawn it, and it looks terrible.
We outsourced it to a contact of mine who I actually never met for the first 3 years, who has done a lot of our graphic design.
Sometimes I forget that people have heard of this business and things, and so sometimes your reputation sort of does precede you. You'll be going somewhere and you'll say, oh yeah, involved in kegs or legs in some part of the conversation. They're like, oh really? Oh, I've heard of that. Oh, that's great. And you're like, wow, I didn't realise you'd have any idea about that. But so that's kind of nice, those sort of things.
Yeah, kegs on legs. The party's going till the last keg is done. And that's when someone turns the ugly lights on. Kegs on legs.
Coming up after the break, our final word.
People have to work with you, not for you. They've got to be part of the total team.
The best form of advertising is word of mouth.
A business is successful by the group of people and their passion and their focus for what they want to do and where they want to go.
Staff is probably a bad word. People is probably an appropriate word. People have to work with you, not for you. They've got to be part of the total team. A chain is as strong as its weakest link. So they've got to be aware of their weaknesses so that you can try and help them. You've got to know how good they are and what their weaknesses are. And collectively you come up with an outcome.
Instead of being, reporting to a boss, you're reporting to your customers.
But as John would say, he's not the boss of the business. The customer's the boss of the business. As Sam Walton, I think, was the originator of that great quote that there's only one boss in the business, and that's the customer, and he can take his business anywhere and sack the lot of us.
We ask every customer how they've heard of us, and word of mouth is by far like the top contributing factor.
The best form of advertising is word of mouth, and so that's how it started for us. It wasn't easy, but we were steadfast and we were committed to what we had set out to achieve.
Our business strives on that. It strives on the good old-fashioned testimonial. So I think that costs nothing. All that costs is making sure that your people at the front line are the right people and love what they do.
So it's always been a priority to make sure suppliers and people that you've obviously got stock or had commitments, things given to you, that you make sure that they're paid.
We have always looked at how best we can serve our guests, but also how best we can look after those producers and the producing nations in providing for their sustenance, and to be fair to what we are getting from them and turning it around into a greater profit for ourselves. And as a result, we've been buying our product directly from the growers to start with, and that has brought us not only loyalty from the growing nations and the growers, but consistency of supply and consistency of product.
You survive primarily by knowing the industry, by practical experience, and the relationships you'll build up from making commitments and fulfilling your obligations. That's probably one of our strengths, all the way back to people we dealt with 30, 40 years ago. We're still friends.
You make the most of every day and you have quality time, especially with your children, and whether it's on a football field or on a dancing floor or in a Stedford, you drop everything, turn the phone off, you take that hour out, and I guess that's what's so precious, that quality time.
When I get home, I'm just with the kids, you know, I just hang out with them, and unless it's an emergency, I won't talk on the phone about work, I won't look up my computer. I do all of that when they go to bed.
We've got a saying here, if work interferes with the family, give away work. The most important thing you have in your life is your family. And if you're not sharing time with them, you've got a problem.
Now, if you'd like to access these and more business stories, small business information and articles, please visit businesssense.com.au. Vodafone makes business sense.